Hello, doctor. I'm Sivamathini and my metric number EX03726. Today, our group are here to present Management Accounting Literature Review on the topic pros and cons of participative budgeting in managerial performance. We will start our presentation by introducing background, the importance of topic, and the purpose of review. Then we will continue by explaining findings of study, patterns, implications of findings, overall own critique, and lastly we'll summarize the conclusion. So now let's move on introduction where is we start background of topic. What is participative budgeting? Participative budgeting is a party budgeting process in which the people who are in the lower level of managers are involved in the budget preparation process. Top level managers and bottom level managers share responsibility for budgetary decision in this style of budgeting. There are two ways adopt participative budgeting, which are top-down curve participative budget and pure participative budget. Top-down curve participative budget is the company's goals or guidelines or communicated to subordinates by management. They explain how personal objectives should be sacrificed to organizational objectives, while pure participative budget is to make budgets total decentralization of powers required. They have the ability to make their own decision. Management will not stop the process. As a result, top level tactics may not always be taken into account. The advantages of participative budgeting. Firstly, employees more accountable. Employees take on more responsibility when they are participate. Those who are in charge of specific tasks will eventually be made responsible for it. As a result, the budget precision improves. Next, budget will be more accurate. It will be prepared by the people who have technical knowledge on it. Disadvantages of participant budgeting. Budgetary slack. It exists when a manager deliberately underestimates income and profits or overestimates expenses and losses. Next, more time consuming. Why is organization still using participative budgeting? Participative budgeting is recommended when employees are skilled. Managers are new to organization with a certain level of decentralization system and organization internal control which prevent budget from inaccurate. Next, why we are doing this literature review? There are two purposes. We like to build a strong understanding regarding the advantages and disadvantages of participative budgeting and also the influences of pros and cons of participative budgeting in managerial performance. That's all for introduction. Next, I pass to Reasshme to explain about findings of study. Thank you.
Thank you, Siva. I'm Reasshme Sandra. My metric number is EX03715. Now, I will explain about findings of a relevant study based on research made. There were pros and cons obtained from findings. The pros that have identified is we will unable to achieve goal congruence if we'll implement usage of participating budgeting. Now, what is goal congruence? Goal congruence is the deal between goals of the company and the employee. In case there is no agreement between company goals and the subordinate manager goals, it will be impossible to company achieve target set. Next, enhanced decision making is also the pros of participating budgeting. Participating budgeting making, which is also known as a PDM, occurred when employer allow and encourage employee to share or participate in organization decision making. Next, let me explain about cons of participate budgeting. Firstly, its limitation of budgetary slack. This happens when employee record the cost and revenue by manipulating their budget own advantage. This happens when the manager and performance measured on basis of the payment of the budget. The manager will be seen exceeding their target order to make the budget achievable. Besides that, participating budgeting slightly time consuming for lower management. It will take more time for them before the staff reach an agreement. This is because it's involving all the employee in each department. When there is no final agreement, the management will need to come up with the final decision and the staff will need to accept and impose the decision made. Now let's move on the patterns in finding that we obtain from the research. This accounting literature shows the benefit of participating in budget. One of the methods that has been suggested in this literature is known as managerial participation. As we know, participating budgetings also have a huge influence on managerial performance. The relationship between participating budgeting also have a huge influence on the managerial performance because they can divide it into two different aspects, which is psychological and contingent perspective. Firstly, it's due to involvement of setting budgeting goals. Secondly, the results of improving flows of information between superiors and subordinates. Participating budgeting also eventually leads the decision with a higher quality participator definitely require higher motivation and more commitment with higher decision quality and higher improvement of performance based on this perspective. Other than that, based on our study career certainly had constraint variable that affect the relationship between participating budgeting and the budgetary slack. In participating budgeting, budgetary slacks gives a negative influence as when the participating budgeting is implemented, the limitation of budgetary slack occurs. Budgetary slack is basically when the employee realize their performance, there will be a marked on realization of budgeting. This attitude might differ when the staff got to know whether they will involving themselves or not in the budget executions. There is a higher tendency for increment in the performance of an individual in the budgetary slack. When the staff got to know that they will be participating directly and have an involvement in the budget realization. That's all from me. Thank you.
My name is Yuggen. My matrix number is EX03732. So I'm going to explain about implications or importance of findings. As participative budgeting approach was not limited to any legal framework, which can be easily identified, the management will have the flexibility to organize the involvement of subordinates in the budgeting process. When it comes to management performance, it is a priority for management to set up reliable objectives to be achieved, and wide participation in budgeting will produce great outcomes. So next, secondly, participating budgeting reinforces the cost management understanding among different levels of management in the company to obtain high quality managerial performances. The budgeting process will become more effective if the subordinates have an ability to control the cost as they are knowledgeable. Subordinates will be more satisfied as they can intensify the potential and participate in the company's managerial process. The motivation for accomplishment will greatly amplify the commitment in organization. So my last point was, besides participative budgeting also implicates money circulation in organizations such as investment to maintain and support substantially improve equity. The investment aspect illustrates how companies need to conduct the budgeting process brilliantly for stable financial resources. As such, the distribution of the funds by management will play an important role. Effective participative budgeting results in efficient cost management, leading to higher profits for the organization to maintain the allocation of dividends. So, for the overall critique, the pros and cons of participative budgeting in managerial performance will illustrate the distinction between how the company's management adapts and implements the process effectively. Participative budgeting helps the company to be well organized and creates wide involvement across the level of the management. When the organization is financially stable, the organization performance is economical. So the second point is participative budgeting is also beyond to a simple step to motivate employees or employers. Employees are motivated when they are responsible for major process within the company. As employees are not fixed to the roles in particular position, they have the ability to consider the organization's benefit rather than individual or division's preferences. To rectify budgetary slack, managers should provide incentives not only to meet budgetary goals but also provide reliable expenditures forecasts. For the conclusion part, we can conclude that participative budgeting is the method of planning the budget with all levels of employees involved for budget preparation. However, participative budgeting empowers representatives to pad the budget. Workers make budgetary slack, which is giving wrong budgeting settings in order to attain the performance targets effortlessly. Participative budgeting helps to progress the awareness of cost control over all levels of management to realize high quality management preferences. Last but not least, successfully participative budget leads to proficient cost management, contributing to more benefit for the dividend distribution to retain by the company. Thank you.